right, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Well, actually, it's 7 o'clock, so it's good evening. Sorry about that. Just give me 1 second here. Gotta take care of something real quick. Um, Thank y'all for joining this evening. Hope you had a great day. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you survived that most recent heat wave. Um, you know, Uh, I wasn't here last week. Enjoyed my time with my lovely bride, celebrating her 50th. I'm guessing it's okay to say how old she is because she announced it on Facebook and everything like that. Um, so um, was not here last week, but had some time to reflect on the previous guest, Mrs. Ayer, who came on, and actually it was my intent to kind of talk about that conversation a little bit, um, just to give a little bit more. And I gave me some time to think, a whole week more or more, gave me some time to think about that conversation. And I was going to share some scriptures with you and things like that. That was my plan. That was my plan. But um, our President Biden, came on and he finally said something about uh, the decision to evacuate or to cease our military presence in Afghanistan. So, that had also been in the back of my mind the past few days because, we see things on the news, um, things shaping up. And then just with the uh, images of the people running in front of the plane and holding on to the plane and even falling off of the plane, their desperation of what's going on. I decided that I was going to talk about that instead. Um, so I invited someone to come on, and I see he was just here for a second, and then it says that his device is not connected. So hopefully he'll get reconnected momentarily. But um, I sent out a really quick message, the announcement of the broadcast tonight, hoping that some of you who may have served, and really I said it in Afghanistan, but any service member, anybody that's gone through some things, military wise, I would like to hear from you, and just get your thoughts and your insight. Uh, I will say the only reference I really have, because I did not serve in the military. Um, but what I do recognize is that the images that I see and the feeling that there is the same feeling that happens, or the images are very similar to what happened when we exited Vietnam. Now, granted, I was only 9 years old or so when that happened, but I still remember that time. I still remember those images and what was going on. So, um, just wanted to have a conversation and see how we are feeling about it. Uh, I'm weary in most cases of what I see on the media because I know it can be slanted one way or the other. You already know, I'm sure, or many of you probably already know, that our former president Trump has made some statements, which kind of crazy. But this is not going to be a thing about Trump, even though again, for me, talks out both sides of his mouth. Because at one point, you know, he was saying that it's because of what he did that we're able to do some things. It was one of those things he talked about during the election times. He even applauded when Biden first started saying, that they were going to pull out, or that we were going to pull out. But now that it does not look so popular, and it looks like there's some issues. Now he's speaking against it. So I guess that's what we should expect from politicians. But nonetheless, that's what's going on that front. But you already know that these things are going to be used no matter what. Um, these things are going to be used in a political sense as well. And really, all I want to talk about today is like the toll. I'm going to show you some numbers, but I'm going to go ahead and bring in my guest. You've actually met him before. Hey, cuz, how you doing?
In a political sense.
Hi, Tony. How are you, sir?
I'm doing
really all I
good.
want to talk about today is toll. I'm gonna show you some
You want
numbers.
to turn down your
Actually,
turn down your Facebook because it's
hey,
bouncing.
cuz, how you doing?
Okay.
In a political sense.
Hi, Tony. How are you, sir?
I'm doing really all today is toll. I'm gonna show you some
You want
numbers.
to turn down your
Actually,
turn down your Facebook.
I'm
definitely gonna want to turn that
hey,
down.
cuz, how you doing?
Okay.
In a political sense.
Hi, Tony. How are you, sir?
I'm doing really all today is toll. I'm gonna show you some numbers.
Turn down your Let me mute you for a second while you figure that out, because you're gonna want to make sure you turn down your speakers and not watch the broadcast on anything else because it's bouncing back. While he's doing that, let me show you guys some numbers. Let me give you guys some numbers because I was looking at this earlier. Now understand this is it's like 19 years, 10 months. Okay, the longest war we've had. It's the longest war we've had. Now understand this is since Vietnam. Vietnam was like 19 years, 5 months. I was looking at the numbers. But the US contractors, 3,846 have lost their lives. Afghan national military and police, 66,000 have lost their lives. Uh-oh, I just lost myself here. American service members killed in Afghan, 2,448. Okay. Compare now when you look at that, and even with all these numbers, when you look at these numbers compared to like Vietnam was 47, depending on the source that you're looking at and what they are counting as death associated to the war, it's anywhere from 47,000 to 58,000. Okay. So we want to keep that in mind as well. Let's see. I already did the Afghan national military, and then other allied service members, including from other NATO member states, is 1,144, and Afghan civilians, 47,425 have died during this war. And then you have aid workers, 444, and then 72 journalists also have passed because of this war. Let's see.
This war. And then you have aid workers.
So I'm still getting a bounce back from you, Chanor. Are you able to turn down your volume at all? Say it again.
Is that better?
That's much better.
Turn down your volume at all.
Turn it back down again.
Turn it back down.
Yeah.
How's
Can you
that?
hear me? Yeah, that's good. Can you hear me?
Now I can't hear you.
Oh boy.
Oh, yeah, that's much down your volume at all. Turn it back down again. Turn it back down. Yeah.
Okay.
How's that? Yeah, that's good.
I'll tell you what, Chanor, if you don't mind, let me put the number up. You can call in if you can. That might work better. I'm not sure why we're getting a kickback today. And everybody, I only have one line, but call in if you want. Be sure to make any comments about the topic tonight. If you're a vet, definitely want to hear from you. Give me some thoughts. Give me some feedback. And I apologize for technical issues. Normally we'd have some time to work all that out beforehand, but I to be honest to him, I contacted him last minute. I just wanted to have somebody else on, especially with somebody that had military background, and he was the first one that came to mind. So give him a few minutes to call in. Yep, there you go. All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great. All right. So
So did that solve that feedback problem?
Yeah, that'll work for us, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
So I just read off a lot of stats and things like that. Now we do want to make sure again we understand. This kind of started with the whole 9/11. You know, I'm one to believe, and I know there's others who may feel this way, that although it was legitimate to go, a legitimate reason to go into Afghanistan in those areas, and there certainly was an issue for us to do that. There's certainly, there was terrorism going on and things like that, and it found its way on our home soil. I also believe that the whole reason why we've been there so long was also because of the oil issue. I think it served in a political sense as well. Okay. Because when you think about it, 10 years ago, just about, uh, the leader that propagated that incident was killed on President Obama's watch. And if that was the reason for us to go uh, in my perspective, we probably should have started exiting then, but it took another 10 years before we started exiting. Um, and I'll also say, in case there's those who may be watching, who may not realize, in 2014, most of the NATO alliance had already started to exit, um, or were on their way out in 2014. So any other countries that came on board at that time have already exited. It's like we were the only ones still holding the bag, if you will. So those are the things I'm thinking about. Those are the things that I recall. And by no means am I an expert on this. But tell me, what are your thoughts? What are your thinking? What's your reflection over the last 20 years?
Well, Tony, thank you for inviting me tonight. As I gave thought before coming here, one of the things I want to be sure to be clear to you and your audience is that even though I served 20 years, I served as a combat medic and as a practical nurse. However, I never served in a actual theater of combat operations. However, I talked with some friends and colleagues that have been there, and my opinion tonight is just simply going to be based on my experience from my eyes, from my lens, from my perspective on what is going on. And 20 years is a long time to be sending the most precious resources that the United States have to send, and that's the young men and women of our nations to go off and die in a foreign land. I have really mixed emotions, mixed feelings about it, and I have not experienced the theater of operation like some of our other brothers and sisters may have. And I'll tell you, based on having conversations with some of them, their experience there was probably so traumatic that they probably would not want to come on and express themselves with regards to this. So my opinion is that if I was involved in, well, my opinion is this. Number one, I don't think we should have broadcast that we were leaving. I think broadcasting that we were leaving at a certain time set us up for this vacuum that is being caused right now. And I would not have done that. The other thing too, this is really catastrophic. This is really a very bad thing. And it does draw parallels to Vietnam, tremendous parallels to Vietnam. However, you was dealing with a certain ideology there and you also deal with another ideology here, which now you give them, how should I say, confirmation that their ideology is have credence.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Okay. So is it? Do you? So are you thinking that? Well, let me ask you this: do you think there would have been a time for us to pull out or for us to cease our combat operations? Because I'm kind of the mindset there was no perfect time to do so, and I guess what you're saying is true. Um, Maybe it should not have been forewarned a date or whatever, because that
Yeah.
allowed them to muster their forces and things like that.
Give me a moment to come back to that, Tony. I got somebody at the door. Give me a moment to come back.
Okay,
I'll be back.
all right,
I'm
good.
sorry.
So, well, what I'm my mindset again is that I think it's time after 20 years that we leave. I'm wondering, what all did made this take so long. Um, so I do wonder about that, especially after Bin Laden um, was executed, if you will, or captured and then buried. Why has it taken so long after that? If that was truly the real reason why we've been in there, and that's something that Biden kind of spoke about, and he's since said that we it's no longer in the interest of America security and things like that. If that's the case, why did it take so long? What were the other interests, if you will, um, that kept us there? And why would we stay there after all that time? I know it's a hard thing, and we see these images and things like that, and I know people are feeling abandoned, especially in Afghanistan. But one of the things that I heard was, that uh, that the Afghan army wasn't really fighting for themselves. They weren't prepared, and it was my understanding that that's what we were doing was training them, preparing them, getting them ready for a time like this. And to hear that they gave up so easily, and it seems obviously it has, because this has been a swift movement by the Taliban. I mean, they just ran through the country almost unabated, and it just says to me that they really didn't prepare properly, or they counted on us remaining because maybe they thought we were too concerned about how we would look. But as I stated before, we were the only nation, powerhouse nation anyway, that remained in a combat mode there. So, what's next is the question. What's next? What is this going to mean when it comes to terrorists? Is that now going to become a new safe haven? And what does that mean to us in America? Of course, Taliban, they're saying, that they're going to continue to allow, women and girls to go to school and all those things. They're going to allow equality to continue on and things like that. Sure, that sounds good up front as they continue to fortify themselves. Okay. But do we really believe that's going to happen?
I got it, Tony. The ideology is so deeply rooted with regards to their treatment of women. And at the end of the day, it seems to me that's one of the most damning things. Excuse my language with regards to that. That's one of the most damning things about this particular situation. That is that it's telling the world that that these people are allowed to treat women just as women are emerging, in my opinion, to assert themselves and express themselves, to be leaders in the world, to be innovators in the world. It's becoming more evident in this day and time as they continue on to emerge that we have this situation in Afghanistan where women will be systematically will be stifled from learning, will be hampered from being able to participate in the politics of government, and it's just quite alarming. And we have not begun to hear the stories that is going to happen as a result of this, because in my opinion, they're so dogmatic about their ideology that I'm afraid that there is a lot of suffering to come is what's next. What's next is going to be a lot of suffering, a lot of consequences, a lot of head scratching, a lot of, I can't believe that this has happened. So, that's what's next. And at this point in time, with that regards to that situation, I don't see no light at the end of the tunnel. But I want to flip the script though, how long is too long to stay inside of a war? 20 years, the longest war that the United States has ever been into, the war on terrorism. And to your point that you talked about, why did we stay? I don't know a good answer to why we stayed. There's a lot of issues there. You mentioned oil, but I think the control of drugs was part of it as well, because as you are aware, they grow a tremendous amount of poppy over there, and a tremendous amount of heroin come out of there, and they weren't successful in drawing it. And matter of fact, I do believe as this new regime come into the country, along with oil, if Afghanistan has a significant amount of oil, along with oil, I think drugs is going to be part of their country's income.
Wow.
Because they've been dealing with the drugs since the Soviets were there.
Yeah.
They was making a lot of money off of drugs when the Soviets were there. And so you talk about other parallels. You talk about the parallels with the Soviets getting in there and leaving with their tail between the legs. Now the U.S. is leaving, and the way that we're leaving, it appears that we're leaving with our tail between our legs. And then the other parallel is that how can you help a country that doesn't want to help itself?
Right.
If they're not going to adopt the ideology of democracy and self-rule and things of that nature, you can't force that on people. And, I'm kind of struck with, how we make that mistake in judgment, how we make that mistake in their character to feel like they would be able to have such a strong backbone to stand up for what they feel was right for their country. And, where are their patriots? Where's their courage? And where's their valor, to stand up for their country and things of that nature. And it just didn't latch on strong enough for them, as far as I'm concerned, to see this happening. It appears that the fighters of the Taliban appears to be the strongest and the lasting the longest with regards to, now they can take the credit. Now they can take the credit of having taken on the Soviet Union and the United States in this long, drawn-out war. They've taken on others before then. They have been fighting wars forever. And now they can put a notch in their belt, say now the U.S. is one.
Wow.
In which they came and they left.
Wow.
And the sad thing about that is that we still have blood in the sand over there, unfortunately. And we're left scratching our heads saying, for what?
Yeah.
And and that's a sad testimony after all these years. And, you have to feel at this time for the family members who have lost loved ones over there, for the men and women who have who have left things there. They left there to come back to the United States, but a part of them is still over there.
Right.
Because the issue, Tony, is that when you go to theater of combat, you don't come back the same.
Yeah.
You lose more than you gain out of that situation. And I can tell you that having been in similar, not actual combat operations, but I really can't talk about that. But having experienced some similar things, you don't come out the same.
Yeah.
And now these folks have to deal with, the why of it.
Right.
And that's going to open up a lot of deep wounds going down the line. We're going to be hearing about this for years. And it is going to be a legacy for the Biden administration.
About
this for years.
And that's kind of the other side that I kind of wanted to dive into. And again, please y'all, make a comment, put in a question. And I do see some of your comments. But, I think about those because I know there's going to be those that oppose it. Okay. That was also my thought, what you just brought up of there are those who went over there who lost their lives, and I'm talking about thousands. There are those who lost loved ones. There are those who paid, the cost of like losing limbs and having mental issues and things like that because of the things that they saw. How do you reconcile those things? And it kind of goes back to your initial question or thought of how long is too long. I can only imagine that there are those who feel like, what was the point? What was the purpose of us being there? And as you said, do we really look like we're leaving with our tail between our legs? It's like I'm trying to wrap my mind around it. It's so many different aspects. You brought back to my memory about the whole drug thing and things like that, because I had kind of set that aside because I'm always thinking about now, unfortunately, what does this mean politically? What was the motivation politically? And not that drugs isn't a political motive, because it certainly is. But that kind of brought back another aspect. But at the same time, me being a spiritual man, me being a biblical man, I kind of look at it and I'm like, that is a region that God has his hands on. And although we don't understand it, it's like that country or that region has never been conquered by outside forces. And it's almost as if it has to be resolved in a biblical sense. That may be for a different discussion. But it's like those are the kind of things that are going through my head. You know what I mean? It's like I'm seeing these things I'm seeing it from the human aspect, the cost of human life. I'm even seeing it from the aspect of how much it costs. I'm not sure if I actually put it down or if I recorded it. I did. When it comes to an estimated amount of direct Afghanistan and Iraq war costs, the United States has debt financed as of 2020 is $2 trillion is what we've spent. $2 trillion.
2 trillion plus.
And an estimated interest cost by 2050. And so we're talking about another 19 years is going to be 6.5 trillion. So there's a monetary cost, there's a human cost, certainly there's probably a spiritual cost, there's a moral, all those things are coming into play.
Yeah.
And how will we be judged in a historical sense? How will those other 3 presidents that ran through here, how will they be able to justify why we stayed so long is one of the biggest questions I have. Just let me say this. I see Tony here. He says he thinks that we should have pulled out after Bin Laden because that was the main reason, or at least supposed to have been the main reason for us going there. USA should have not to be the one to defend them when they themselves didn't make any effort to prepare themselves. Dolly says she's married to a veteran and have many family members whose military career experiences includes the Vietnam War, the Panama Canal, etc. My opinion is that they are doing the right thing. We have an investment that includes the biggest heroin product in the world. Also, the oil is only a part of it. All right. And again, Tony, why is it that the USA feel as though they are the one to defend other countries and lose lives regarding some issues that don't pertain to the US? Okay. And I think all those are valid thoughts and questions, and I think those are the things that have handled us for such a long time. Why are we the gatekeepers for everything? It seems like sometimes,
Tony, there is a philosophy that we'd rather fight on other shores than let the fight come to us in our streets. When we go fight abroad, we're projecting our power in such a manner that we do not want it to come on our doorstep and vastly affect our citizens. So it's more of a projection or a projected shield, in a sense, that is part of the reason why we would rather go to another shore than to have it come to our shores and be in our streets and affect on a larger scale our citizens. So, and I say that to address the question that you proposed there. Why is it that we do? This is, and maybe we need to change that philosophy. Because we'll then begin to understand much better that if we have to reject or repel an enemy storming our shores in Ocean City or Pompano Beach somewhere, or coming down through the Canadian border, or coming up from Mexico, we'll understand that a lot more, and we'll try to prevent it. People in Europe, they understand what it is to fight in the streets and have bombs fall on them, and to have to clean up afterwards. Europe is very clean now. Those people have learned from the years of having war and things of that nature. And so the young people are different. The older people remember. For me, for my money, I'd much rather not have it have to fight on these avenues and streets and roads and subject our citizens to the carnage. I'd much rather, do that at a projected and, some no-name place. We never knew about Vietnam until Vietnam happened.
Right.
And all the cities over there. We never knew about Afghanistan until Afghanistan happened. What is Kabul? What are these places? When we come there, we wind up making them famous and making them household names, because we never heard of them. So, it's part of the philosophy that, that I understand that over the years. But, the comments some of the audience are making are so right and so right on point. There's so many of them that's going to happen now that this has happened. The conversation now just pushes every other conversation aside, because we're going to be talking about this for months. I mean, COVID, now it competes with the COVID conversation.
Right.
And there's so many things that can come out of when you talk about the moral cost, the spiritual cost, And there's other costs, but I don't want to be an alarmist, but there's other issues out there that is growing. This thing to me gives credence to young ideology that is struggling to be recognized. And now that we did this, they're going to align themselves with the Taliban and try to have their ideology grow. So strange. The real scary thing is that now we got this issue internationally, and we still have the issue domestically of domestic terrorism.
Yeah.
And so we've actually opened up all sorts of fronts for ourselves, and we're being tested. We are really being tested as to how we're going to make this social experiment survive. Because we're still young in the eyes of the world, considering as a civil society, we're still young.
Yeah.
And people may not realize it, but we could still be taken off the face of the earth because we're so young.
Yeah.
That this is still a social experiment that we're trying to say it is the right thing. It is the way people should be treated. We should be self-governing. We should not have a certain ideology that dictates how you should live, or tell you what your destiny is going to be, or stamp out your creativity, or persecute you because of who your father was or who your father did, or that we should not have to worry about that. But the world, to some degree, agree, but then there's some segment of the world that don't agree, and we've been fighting this constant battle for years. And so, this is going to be a conversation for a long, long time, unfortunately, and we'll have to see how we come out of it.
Yeah. And you're right. I've said it before myself. We're still a very young country, and we're prone to make mistakes. It's bound to happen. I mean, because when you think about it, we're an adolescent country compared to others, especially those in that region. So we're bound to make mistakes. But you're right. We should not get to the point where we feel like we are the end all be all, and that we are so mighty and powerful that nothing can happen to our political system as we know it. And I think last year, or earlier this year, what was that, May 6th, when there was an insurgent on the Capitol, goes to show that even within our own borders, there's a faction that does not necessarily agree with how we do things in our own country. One thing that Dolly said, God has raised up a nation, the USA, to show the world his favor and wrath. We were chosen to be the gatekeepers because we are one nation under God. Amen.
Amen. Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And you know what? Like you, Shanor, that's how we were raised. That's what we were taught to believe. But I don't believe that's something that is still believed anymore. I don't think. I think we are divisible. I think we're seeing how divisible we are over the past few years.
No doubt. You're right.
And I often wonder, is it because of that division that's going to cause these other factions, not necessarily other religions, but these other factions who have these other ideologies? Is that going to be that division is what's going to cause them or allow them to penetrate us in such a way that our ideals become compromised?
I agree. That's the test. That's a crack in our armor. And, it's going to be a matter of how well we can survive it and whether we can survive it. It's going to take years to determine that. But we have to do a self-examination as a people and determine, whether it is worthwhile to come and stay together, because the way things have been happening lately, this is Sun Tzu. I think that's the Chinese philosophy, to attack an enemy from within. Yeah, so I gotta tell you, I'm very concerned because because certain things are manifesting itself, and and although my tone, it comes to me that my tone may sound. I don't want it to sound defeatist. I want to be more concerned about what's going on, but I still feel the strength. I think that we still have the strength to endure. It's just concerning and alarming, but I still think that we are a sleeping giant. I think that people do not want to poke the bear that is the United States of America. I don't think that they really want to do that, and because you can consider us like a gentle giant. That there are some things that we are grossly powerful, and you really don't want to be downrange when we let loose our wrath. And we understand that wrath that we have, and as that saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. And if you're going to be a leader, and if you're going to be an example in the world, then you can't go around with your big stick hitting people upside the head because they don't agree with you.
Right.
And that's the line that we have been trying to straddle for a long period of time. Now, a lot of us don't agree about how we use our stick. Then some of us, our elected officials, some of us, we use the stick inappropriately. And, in the name of the United States. And it wound up being so wrong at the end of the day, so arrogant and so exploitive, because, for a long time, that would happen where people didn't think it was going to come to light. But now it comes to light, and now you got terms such as the ugly American, where we wanted to be the shining American, the American that is the example.
Right.
But we're not the example. As evidence, by evidence, the most incarcerated people in the world, of Western states, most incarcerated, the highest death rate of infants, and I don't know what the numbers or the figures are with regards to the poverty rate. We're one of the richest countries in the world, yet we can have ownership to all these negative things. We really got to get ourselves together, and this is part of our test. This is part of what we need to wake up to. How can we go into other countries and say, you need to do this, you need to do that, or we suggest you do this, or we suggest you do that. If you don't do this, then we're going to do that, trying to look arm twisting. But yet, you've got the highest incarceration rate of any Western country in the world, the highest poverty rate in the country, of the world. So we've got a lot of deficits, and I wish I could articulate those figures there. That really doesn't flatter us at all.
Right.
It doesn't flatter us at all, and we've got to stop. We got to stop being hypocrites, and be a better example, and that's the issue right there, the main issue. We're pointing fingers over in different countries about human rights issue, and we got a glaring human rights issue right here at home.
Yeah. We're
overseas fighting terrorists, and we won't classify real terrorists here at home. We won't go after the real terrorists, the Ku Klux Klan, the Aryan Brother Nation, we won't go after those people and classify them as terrorists and snuff them out, but we'll send snipers overseas and go after so-called terrorists there, you know. So, and then, you know, I think it's a matter of, you know, perception as well, because one man's terrorist, another man's hero.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, we used to be terrorists, Tony.
Right.
We were terrorists at one time as
Right.
Americans, you know, because there was a status quo that we didn't agree with, and we rallied to revolt against that, and they called us terrorists. And so, and you know, in hindsight, we were found to be correct with our behavior in that regard, because the ideology that we adopted was a morally correct ideology. And so, and we're still trying to find the true north of that morality.
Right.
Because, you know, even at that time that we were calling ourselves morally correct as revolutionaries, we were still saying that all men, although on one hand we're saying all men are treated equal, but
You're
then
still
on the other
enslaving.
hand we're saying except you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, black man, Indian, Chinaman,
Right.
you know, we're trying to say all men are created equal except you. And then it takes so long to right that wrong, centuries almost. And now emerges the women, and their women are now coming up and asserting themselves. Our first female black president, and other female dignitaries that accomplish high things in government and in business. So, you know, I like that idea. I like that diversity.
Yeah.
You know, I like because, you know, the men, you know, we've ruled the world up to this point in time, and look at what a mess it is. You know, and so I think we need to let the women in there, and I think they can straighten it out. I mean, you need to strong arm a situation and strong arm it, but at least it's going to be tempered with a thought process that is different, you know, as opposed to the predominantly male approach to things. It's not balanced, and it should be balanced, you know. So I don't know. I'm quite disturbed by the circumstances. However, you know, I'm glad we're out of there now that the decision has been made. For my money, I'm behind the decision. You know, had I known the consequences before now, what was going to happen? Again, like I said, I don't agree with telegraphing when you're going to leave a place. So you cause this vacuum. This vacuum is on purpose. They were just waiting for us to leave. And so you have this vacuum. We really shouldn't be surprised. And so I'm like, we should not be risking. And what would be the agenda if we did stay there?
Right.
I mean, staying there for what? What is it? Are we going to kill however many millions of people there to try to snuff out that ideology? I mean, for some of us, that might be the solution, but I don't know whether that solution would be the morally correct solution.
No.
You know, what would be the reason of staying on? Would the reason for staying on is because we shed blood in the sands over there, that we lost loved ones over there? Would that be the reason to stay on and be so dogged after the goals there? Or would the goals be attainable? And how will we know whether they're attainable not after 20 years?
Right. Right.
So I'm behind the decision. I agree with the decision. I don't agree with how it happened or the way it happened. I think that for a long time we're going to be talking about this. There may be some consequences domestically about it, but you know, that's going to be what it's going to be. The thing is that, you know, we're not going to have any more sons and daughters of the U.S. at risk. Now, one thing that needs to be watched here is that if in this evacuation they kill one more American, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen now. If they kill one more American as they're trying to leave,
Right.
I don't suggest that happen because, look, trying to tell you, this is a very emotional, sensitive time, and I wouldn't put it past President Biden to pivot on his decision and give them something to remember us by.
Well, he's
if that
already
happens.
he's issued a warning.
Yeah.
We've issued a warning. If you interfere with our operations of evacuation, there will be consequences.
Well, Tony, you mentioned earlier about conquering. Our role over there initially was not to conquer. If we were to try to conquer, there would be a bigger mess over there. All the surrounding countries will have something to say about that,
Right.
To include China and Russia, because you're trying to conquer a country that is on our doorstep. That's like that someone trying to conquer Maryland and Pennsylvania, Virginia, D.C., West Virginia. They ain't going to have it because if you did that, you threaten their borders, and they're not having that.
Right.
So
Right.
they're going to stop you from conquering Maryland.
Right.
So if we wanted to conquer Afghanistan, we would have to conquer
The entire
Russia.
region. Yeah.
That's right, the entire region.
Yeah.
And that was never the goal, never the design. I think mainly the design was to expand democracy, and that's not working either. That hasn't worked, and so.
Well, we definitely tried to get them to insert our way, our democratic lifestyle, and that did not work.
Well, the main thing is self-rule. That's what we were trying. That's what we have to, because that was the moral compass. That's the moral thing we can do. That's the thing morally that the predominant amount of people can get behind morally. But then when you think about moral, it is atrocious to consider what they would do to young girls and women over there. We, in our world, we wouldn't have it. Not educating them the way that they're supposed to be educated, sending them to jail because they want to learn how to read, executing them because they wanted to learn. Come on, really?
Right.
We won't execute nobody here because they wanted to learn. They attempted to do that during slavery. They would beat you because you were trying to learn how to read. And we realized, now I shouldn't say we, but they realized how wrong that was. But now you're going to
after
have
a fight,
that
though.
Yeah, so we're the so-called moral cops, and unfortunately, that didn't happen. We didn't look deep enough. We were probably looking so hard at trying to exit out of there that we did not look at the consequences of doing it the way that we did.
Well, you said a lot there, because I'm like kind of looking at some of these comments that I'm seeing. On America's worst day, we are still one nation under God.
Amen.
I agree with that. Warfare is not to be desired for beauty. Spiritual warfare is ugly, and our opponents, enemies of God, will definitely fight dirty. The Romans were an apostolic culture, meaning when they went to war and captured the enemy of their land, they taught them how to convert to the Roman way of life. The Taliban wants to also convert in the same manner. So, all those things, I agree. In the last few moments that we have, I want to open it up to anybody who feels different. I think you see that Chano and myself, we are on the same page where I believe it was time. I think it's long overdue for us to have left. I think that it would have been a painful thing in either way. And one of the things you said, what would be the reason to stay? Can we just say, well, we spilled blood over there, therefore we're invested In a sense, I see that, but is that investment? There's this thought of you don't want to keep throwing bad money after bad money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how much more are you willing to invest into bad soil? And that's what it feels like to me. If we continue to see there, we're just going to see more lives lost, and we're not going to gain much more. And it's going to continue to be a burden on us as a country. Again, not just for the souls, but financial and all those other things as well. So, for me, I think it's past time that we have left. But I am asking if there's anybody out there who has a different opinion, who feels differently. If you feel like this was the wrong choice, I want to hear from you as well. Give your side. Give us something else to think about. Maybe we're not considering something else. Regardless of how strong you feel our opinion may be, or how strong we think our opinion is, if you have a different opinion, let's hear it, because that's what a conversation is. It's two-sided. So I'll give you a few minutes if you want to type something in. Feel free to do that. Again, I appreciate you coming on, Sean. We only have a few more moments. I know it was like a last-minute thing, but I was watching the 5 o'clock news, and I was like, I can go back and talk about the previous show next week, if at all. But this is a hot topic, and I believe we need to talk about the things that are happening right now in our world. And this is major, and I think this is a pivotal point in our nation, because I do think this is going to have some ramifications down the road. It may not be immediate. It may not be immediate. I'm not saying that we're going to start seeing some things next week or the next 2 weeks. But I think as we allow these other ideologies take hold in this region, okay, once again,
So, Tony,
I think it's going to have a change. Sure.
Tony, we drew parallels in the beginning of our conversation. There's a lot of answers or questions out there that we want to have answers for, or just understanding. And if you recall, it wasn't until years later, after Vietnam, that we understood why Vietnam happened at the end the way that it did. Vietnam was happening the way that it did because the war was ran by politicians. The politicians were selecting targets. Politicians was drawing the lines to attack the enemy here and not attack the enemy there. They were a source of frustration for our men and women on the ground as such. So that is another parallel that is yet to be revealed, and that parallel will probably take the next 4 to 5, 7, maybe 10 years to manifest itself. What was the root cause of this dissolution that we're having, or this exit that we're having in Afghanistan, similar to what we had with Vietnam? And people, man, those scenes are so deja vu, Tony.
Yeah.
People latching themselves to aircraft. That's more desperate than the Vietnamese were. Now, of course, technology is different now than it was then. I mean, certainly there may have been more, that they were probably more desperate then. But can you imagine the carnage and the fear, the nightmare? What is, as we go into night, or they go into night now, what is the fear that they're going through?
Yeah.
You and I, we're in this country, we don't have that to bother us right now, and their world is just, what? I mean, I just can't fathom it. And so years from now, we're going to be able to peel back the onion on this situation and discover exactly what was the root cause of this situation. And we will evaluate the steps along the way of each of the different presidents and what their contribution was to this, and why did we not exit prior time? When was the best time in each of the different presidencies? So I think that will occur in years to come. We'll be
Yeah.
looking for that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I haven't heard anything from anybody else, so I'm guessing or thinking that most of us are in agreement. Um, I do appreciate again you, Channel, and everybody that came on, and I do hope that you guys will share this conversation. I will say, as he just brought up, people are living in fear over there. People are gripped by fear to the point of they'll do something as irrational as try to hold on to an airplane to think that they'll be able to
And
make
they
it.
die.
You know,
They die as a result of it. They just.
it's amazing
Mm.
the desperation that they must be feeling. And
Oh
as you
my
pointed
gosh.
out, we don't have to deal with that kind of stuff. We don't.
Yeah.
I doubt, except for those of us who may have served, those who have lived in those countries. We have uh, even in the worst neighborhoods that we have. And I understand what that means to live in some bad neighborhoods where there's gunfire and drug running and all that, and that can be awfully scary. But this, in my mind, is a different level of fear where
Yeah.
you're under constant oppression, never knowing uh, if your next step is your last step.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you, or just being wrongfully accused of something, and I can draw parallels, about the black experience and things like that. I mean, certainly we can do that, but I'm gonna ask that we put aside for a moment, the life that we're living, okay? Because in my mind, it's infinitely better than most over there, and say a prayer, pray for those people,
Amen.
even though
Amen for
they may
that.
be of a different religion. They're
Yeah.
still people.
Amen for that.
They're
You're
still
so right,
people.
Tony.
They still have souls. Pray
So
for
right.
their safety. Pray for leadership. Even pray
Yeah.
for the insurgents of the Taliban. That their heart will change and that it will
It's
try to be.
possible. It's possible. That's
They'll
right.
treat people with equality as they say they want to do and things like that. Pray for those things that they would actually come to fruition.
It is possible.
Because at the end, we're talking about human beings, and it goes beyond
Yep,
just the political
absolutely.
thing.
That's the main thing.
It,
God's
it
children.
has to go. It has to go beyond just a political. It has to go beyond the monetary. Think about the people and pray
Yeah.
for them. Keep
Yeah.
them in your
The
prayers.
people, the children, the children. My goodness, what are they going to do with the children? Jeez.
It's gonna have a toll. And I know not everybody believes in prayer. I know not everybody worships the same God and things like that. But I believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ, and I believe in prayer. So I'm just
Amen.
asking that you take some time to pray, and that the evacuation will go well, that there's no real serious mishaps. Because again, like Chano said, um, if some Americans start disappearing or aren't able to get out, if some of our allies start disappearing and aren't able to get out, it's going to get real ugly real fast. It's going to get real ugly real fast, and it's going to be a different story altogether. So
Yep, it's going to be another news line, another news cycle, another something to talk about.
yeah. All right.
I
Well,
just pray that no one dies.
amen. Amen. Well, again, thank you, Chano. I appreciate it. And just for those of you that don't know, Chano was actually on with me before. And if you're wondering how come he keeps calling me Tony, this is my cousin. My family calls me Tony because my middle or Mark Anthony and Tony was adopted when I was a child. So my family calls me Tony. Everybody else pretty much knows me as Mark or Mark Anthony. So he does know who he's talking to. I want y'all to think he don't even know who you're talking to or anything like that. But I appreciate you, cuz, taking some time just to spend this
Thank
hour
you.
with me.
Glad to do it.
Again, y'all, please share this conversation. Talk about it. Be aware, watch the news. Don't turn your eyes away from it. We got to pay attention. The word of God says, watch as well as pray. So we need to be watching what's going on, especially in that region. That is a biblical region. And we need to keep our eyes on there because, you know, God is doing a work. We don't always know his plan. We don't always understand it, but God is doing a work, and it's in that region, you know, and things are shaping up biblically according to how things are looking. So let's keep that in mind. And I do believe that God has a plan for the U.S. and it plays a part. You know, that's another time we can talk about. We can get into revelations and things like that. But the most important thing right now, y'all, is pray. Again, thank you, Chanor. Thank you all for tuning in. Talk to y'all real soon. Please, again, share it. I'll see you all next Monday. Hopefully, there won't be any major headlines. But if there is, we'll talk about that. Otherwise, we'll get back to some of the other things we've been talking about the past few weeks as well. And I'll be lining up some other guests for us as well to talk. Enjoy the rest of your night. Be safe. Hey, if you have not been vaccinated, please go get vaccinated. Please go get vaccinated. This Delta virus is no joke. You know, you want to make sure that you protect yourself, and that even if you were to get it, you know, you minimize how ill you will get. Okay. So just go ahead and get vaccinated. Look at the numbers, look at the research. You can see that those who are in the hospital, I think I heard the other day was like 98% of those who were in the hospital were those who were not vaccinated because of COVID-19.
Yeah, I heard the same thing.
That it was, I know it was in the 90s. It might have been 97, 98, somewhere around there. But that just lets you know that vaccination helps and it works. Thankfully, we're in the state, Maryland. I'm in the state of Maryland. Thankfully, we're one of the top 3 states that have been vaccinated. So thank y'all for listening, those of y'all that are in the area. But again, have a great night. Know that I love you. But more than that, always remember that God loves you more. He proved it by giving us his son. His son proved his love by going to the cross and dying for us and paying a penalty that we could not pay. And if you don't understand what all that means, what it meant for him to get up on the 3rd day, please reach out. Use this number that you see scrolling at the bottom. Please send an instant message on Messenger. You know, leave me a comment, whatever. But make sure you have that conversation with someone. Because that's the most important conversation you will ever have. Thank you all for interacting. I saw you, Tony, Robert, Michelle, anybody else that I saw come on. If I didn't put up your post, I apologize. If I missed it, I apologize. But I truly appreciate you guys interacting. Again, one more time, thank you. And I will see you next week on Keep It Real Conversation. Thank you, cuz. Love you too, man.
All right. Good night.
Good night.